I beat procrastination and took my SMMA from being stuck at 5K per month to scaling to 75K per month in under 12 months with this four-step formula. Every single successful entrepreneur you've ever heard of, Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg, they all did one key thing I'm going to show you here to beat procrastination and grow like crazy. And over the nearly 12 months I took to reverse engineer this whole thing, there was honestly a lot more pain and suffering than I expected, but thankfully, you can just do this much easier than I did after watching this video. Now, starting with step one, we're looking at rules and access. Now, if you don't do this, you're screwed from the beginning. You can't just pick and choose steps here. You actually have to do all of them and do them in sequence because there is an order of events. Now, when I'm talking about setting rules, you want to start small. What rules am I talking about? So I'm talking rules such as ones that I used: work X hours per day. No phone time during the work time, right? Only count hours that you've actually worked, excluding breaks. So what this looked like for me in the beginning, I was really inconsistent. I would work 3-4 hours per day on average. Some days I would work 10 hours. Some days I would work 1 hour and basically do nothing. Some days, you get the idea. So I'd work on average about 3 to 4 hours per day kind of thing. So what I did is I set a baseline of working 6 hours per day, completely uninterrupted. So no phone time, no social media, nothing like that. And I would only count towards those 6 hours the amount of time that I actually worked, excluding breaks. And I'm talking going as granular, going as detailed as when I'd go to use the restroom. We're talking, I'm not counting those 7 minutes, and I'm counting 6 hours down to the minute. I was freakish about the level of tracking that I was doing. Tracking is extremely important. That's another thing that you'll want to do from the get-go and not stop doing throughout this entire process. Now, when I talk about access, what you want to do from there is limit access to specific distractions. Hence, no phone time during work time, right? And during the time of your rules, what I'd suggest for this is to put your phone in a somewhat obscure place. So if you have impulses, which you will, and you start walking to go get your phone, you can catch yourself and then walk back to your desk and get back to work and not go onto your phone. So if you put your phone at the top of your closet, it's like, why would you ever put your phone there? Or if you put it in a completely different room in a drawer, right? When you find yourself walking to it, you have that time in order to catch yourself and go, wait, I'm not supposed to be doing this. Let's go back to work. Right? And you need to actually do that step. Just putting it in another room isn't everything. You need to catch yourself during these moments. And it's something that's so helpful and really builds the habit of not getting on your phone. And during this phase, it's extremely important that you do not leave your phone within arm's reach, because you will impulsively pick it up, look at it, scroll, and just not even really realize you're doing it. That's why we want to put it somewhere else so that doesn't happen. And throughout this entire process, we want to keep our phone as far away from our work environment as possible for as long as possible until these working habits are ingrained. Now, on your computer, you can also get distracted. So I'd recommend using apps like Newsfeed Eradicator. That's the app that I use personally. It blocks YouTube feeds, Facebook, Instagram, whatever platforms you use. There's some other ones too, but that's the one I use. It's on 24/7. I only ever turn it off for, say, an hour during a break or, for a day on the weekend. Now, moving into step two, increments and growing pains. Now, you really need to be careful and do this step properly, or else you'll just mess everything up and constantly find yourself procrastinating again, and you'll feel like nothing really changed. So what you want to do from here is, let's say start off with 6 hours per day worked uninterrupted. You want to increase that number gradually, incrementally. So I'd recommend doing it between bi-weekly and monthly increments. I personally opted for monthly increments, and it's the easiest to manage, and it's the least likely to burn you out. Now, the next part of this is growing pains. There are growing pains from increasing from 6 to what I did. I went from 6 to 7.5 hours per day. 7.5 hours, I would work a total of 8 hours. I would take one 30-minute break in the middle. I would not count that. So I'd work the 7.5 hours, again, with the 30-minute break on top of that. And whenever I would increase by 1 hour per day worked, there would be growing pains, and those growing pains would last about 2 full weeks from my experience. The first couple days can feel okay, then it can kind of catch up to you, and then things can be a little bit rough through the second week. At different levels, at different stages, it's a different challenge. So if you're going from 4 hours worked per day to 6, that's a 50% increase. 6 hours per day worked isn't that crazy. And it can be harder going from 6 to 8 or 9 and 10. That's where I started to have some issues pushing 9, 10 hours per day on a consistent basis. And you have to be, because of these growing pains, you have to be extra careful, and you have to fight harder during these periods to keep working, to discipline yourself, to not look at your phone, to keep using things like Newsfeed Eradicator, and so on and so forth. So that's step 2, incrementally increasing the amount of work that you're doing at a reasonable pace, while keeping in mind that you're going to experience growing pains, and there are going to be challenges that come with that. Now, moving on to step 3, hold on tight. I'll get into why I named it that in a second, but this is the hardest part and the most crucial step, and it's in line with step 2, but it's very, very different from step 2 at the same time. Really, at this point, let's say you've increased to 9 hours per day of work. This is where, and you've been doing that for a month, and you're happy here and you want to maintain this. You haven't fully ingrained the habit yet. A month of doing it is very good, and at this point, you've most likely developed the habit of not constantly checking your phone, and so on and so forth. And bear in mind, everybody has a different starting point when approaching this system. Some people are used to working 10 hours per day, they want to get to 13. Some people are used to working 3 or 4 like I was, and they want to get to 10. Right? That was so just bear in mind, it's slightly different for everybody. Everybody has different social media consumption, so on and so forth. But at this stage, you cannot slip up even once. You cannot. As soon as you start bringing your phone back to your desk, you'll slowly find yourself falling back into your old habits and into your old ways. So these are things that you want to maintain. I still use Newsfeed Eradicator to this day. If I go to my YouTube feed right now, you'll see it is blocked off and there's a quote. I use it to this day, and I recommend you do not stop using things like this. To this day as well, I keep my phone in another room, where I keep it across the room, right? Because I can deal with that, because I know that if I stand up to go get my phone, I'm like, what am I doing? I'm not supposed to be doing this. And then I go sit back down, right? I don't need it to be in another room, but it's across the room. That may not be the case for you. You may seriously struggle even if your phone is anywhere in the room. In that case, you'll want it to be in another room. You can even buy a phone lockbox on Amazon. They're like $20 or something. You can set a timer and then fully lock your phone away. That's a cool thing that you can do as well, little tactical tip. But you must stay consistent for several months on end if you seriously want to ingrain this habit and not lose it. One little tip I have for you as well to live through this period successfully, this hold on tight period, is the night before you go to sleep, or the night before, let's say it's Sunday night or Monday night, before you have a work day the next day. When you're laying in bed, you can set an alarm to do this and remind yourself. I personally also set a go to bed alarm so that I go to bed at the same time every day. That way I get a good amount of sleep so that the next day I'm refreshed, I'm ready to work, and my mind's in the right place. But when I'm laying in bed, to this day, what I do is I tell myself, okay, tomorrow I'm going to wake up at this time. I'm going to start working at this time. 11 a.m. I start working right now. And I'm not going to stop working. I'm going to work the full day through till 12 a.m. midnight. I work 11 a.m. to 12 a.m. So 13 hours. I take a 1 hour lunch break and a 2 hour dinner, exercise, kind of relaxed break. But I tell myself that the night before so that when you wake up, you're not shell-shocked and confused and like, what is going on, and all over the place and scattered, and then you're like, oh, I have to work, and then you feel all bad about it. That programming, that setup for your brain, doing that the night before, is something that has benefited me in just the most massive way possible, and I highly recommend you do it. Now you can start to see what I was saying before, which is you have to do every single one of these steps, or just about. I recommend you do every single one of them, and I recommend you do them to a T. And the unfortunate thing is that most people won't do it. They'll watch this video, they'll go on, live the rest of their life. If I were you, I'd watch it again, take notes, and then actually implement the thing gradually over a long period of time. Another little hack in all of this that I personally did, you can use incentives or you can make bets with your friends. I don't promote underage gambling. But what I would do with some of my friends is we'd place money on the line. And if I slip up within this week, you have to be honest with yourself throughout this whole thing. Like, you're the only one that's doing this, unless you're doing it with a friend. You have to be honest with yourself, and you can have some kind of like, penalty if you slip up. You owe them $50 or something like that, right? That stuff can really push you to make sure that you hold these habits. But again, you have to be honest with yourself. Now, step 4, influx. This is the fun but scary part, and you don't know when it's going to come until it finally does. And then oftentimes it's always too late, right? This is the step that I was telling you in the beginning, that every single one of these big entrepreneurs, Mark Zuckerberg, Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, every single one of them have gone through this in a really, really major way. And this is where, just to get to this step, it takes you months and months, 6 months, 8 months, potentially even 12 months, just to get to the influx step. And what happens here is you've put so much work into your business. You've done so much outreach. You've taken so many calls. You've practiced writing ads so much that everything starts to actually work. And clients just start flying in. You have a boatload of work, you can't keep up, and now you need to hire, and now you're struggling, or now you need to start working more. And what happened to me when I was working 10 hours per day, I hit influx and I jumped up to 12 to 13 hours a day and went even beyond because things got so crazy. Some days it would be 14 hours. Right now it's 13 that I'm doing, right? Technically it would be 10 hours of solid work, but even then, right? We're still working over the course of a 13-hour day, and my breaks are really breaks to recover to continue working. Just that's what works for me. And so this is where, again, you have no option. You just have to work more. But this is fun because this is where the scaling happens. This is where you gain control, you gain leverage, and that's what you want. You want to be able to hire somebody and hire that VA or hire that appointment setter or hire somebody to do your service delivery. That's what you've always wanted from the beginning. And that's this really exciting stage that is influx. And that's where all of the power comes from, and where you can really start making big strategic plays instead of having to constantly write emails and do this and do that and do the little things that you don't really want to do, but you have to fight your way through that in the beginning. And this is the best way that I've found to do that personally, right? But to reach influx, every single previous step here must be done. Really, if you simplify influx, you have to put so much work into your business over any amount of time that there just becomes too much work to do. So you can achieve influx without doing this, but if you're not productive and you're procrastinating like crazy, this is how you achieve influx. And this is how I personally achieved influx, scaled my agency like crazy, so on and so forth. Now, if you want to work with me more closely to implement this in your agency, or just to scale your agency, work with your service delivery, whatever it may be, and meet up with like-minded people who are where you're at, or who are ahead of you, then you could book a sales call with me in the description. Otherwise, click whatever's popping up on screen here, whatever video is popping up on screen, and I'll see you there.